talking with MPP Bobbi Ann Brady, Haldeman Norfolk. What are we going to talk about this month? Seems like there's nothing going on, eh?
Been
All right.
fireworks going off everywhere the past few weeks.
Yeah, I wanted to start, if you don't mind, and I want you to walk me through it because I seen this fiasco last week in the House with International Women's Day, and I didn't understand what was going on. And can you sort of give me the overview of this? Because it seemed like the few people come out of that situation not looking too good, if you know what I mean.
It wasn't a well thought out decision. So what happens is we as the independents, and keep in mind, I'm the true independent there, not under a party banner, but the Liberals don't have enough seats to form party status. So they're also considered independents. The Green Party are considered independents. There's now two of them. I now have a seatmate in Ms. Clancy, who won the seat just recently. Anyway, so we're all considered independents. And in order for us, we'll bring forward unanimous consent motions asking to speak to certain things. And the government House Leader largely decides whether or not we can do that, which really, really, really floors me because we have the same parliamentary privilege when it comes to questions, statements, all of these other things. But I feel that this government has really tinkered with the standing orders of the Legislative Assembly and have given themselves this authority to make decisions that really they have no business making. The government House Leader did not elect me. The people of Haldeman Norfolk elected me. Doesn't matter if you sit as a PC member, a Liberal member, an NDP member, an independent, whatever. We are all supposed to have the same parliamentary privilege. Anyway, we brought forward a unanimous consent motion asking for members of the independents to speak to International Women's Day. And it just takes one no. And so the government House Leader yelled no. And then the NDP, who are not considered independents, they're the official opposition, they joined forces with us and they brought forward the same request that evening. And the government House Leader doubled down and said no again. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is a really, really, really bad situation that they've gotten themselves in. And anyway, so we, as the independent women, decided that on the Thursday morning, we would hold a news conference detailing what had happened. And the government House Leader tried to say that he was not aware that we wanted to speak to International Women's Day. He was not aware that the independents were going to bring forward the request. And Lucille Collard from the Liberal caucus, she says, well, here's the proof. And she had an email from the previous Friday informing the government House Leader's office that we would want to speak.
Wow. So it was
so
on
now
record.
You've got a situation where not only have they said no, but now I'm not allowed to use the word lying in the Ontario legislature,
right.
But I can use it out here. They're now lying about the fact that they, whether they knew or not. So we did the news conference and, my colleagues, my female colleagues, many of them took the female angle that, this is not right for women. And that's how they saw it. I said, it's not right for democracy. It should not be up to the government House Leader whether or not we speak on any issue. We have the ability to speak to every issue. We have parliamentary privilege, and they've tinkered with parliamentary privilege, and they're asserting their authority in a place where they shouldn't be asserting it. So I said, listen, I ran a campaign in 2022 based on two things, responsible development and standing up for democracy. So for me to participate in the news conference was all about standing up for democracy. Because today, or last week, it's International Women's Day. What else are they blocking us from? Or can they? Yeah, right? They're going to do it again.
I think, too, I want to clarify something because I think a lot of people get confused. I know I was a little bit in the beginning. The government House Leader is the leader of the government in charge. That person. And I didn't realize that one person can tell you no for an afternoon session. I don't want you to speak. No, It's that easy. But I would have thought that the chair of the House could override that, but obviously not.
Yeah, so the Speaker of the House only
Yeah.
upholds the rules that exist. So
Right.
as long so he is acting within the rules. But one of the things that I know is that they have tinkered. This government has actually tinkered with the standing orders so that they can assert more authority.
Doesn't seem right at all.
It's not democratic.
No, it just seems like, to me, it's like, well, wait a minute. The first thing that bothered me truly was not giving International Women's Day, not going to allow people to speak on that alone. When you look where we were 70 years ago, right? How the strides that have come forward, and you're saying no to that? Like, come on. What?
Yeah.
Where, that really bothered me, first of all. And then to see how it blows up, and then it looks like it becomes a circus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell are you guys getting done there? If you can't even allow that, obviously there's more stuff going on that you don't want to talk about. So
yeah, it's a no-brainer. And even if it was true that he didn't know we were bringing forward this unanimous,
doesn't matter.
Come on,
it doesn't matter. Come on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he looked bad, and women have been sharing it all over all weekend. And I'm really proud of my colleagues. We worked across party lines.
Exactly.
You have Liberals, you have Green Party, and you have Bobbi Ann. I have my independent party line. We worked across party lines to come together and shame the government into doing something. And they took a different stance than I did, but that's democracy. They took a different stance than I did in the news conference, and nobody said to me, "Oh, hey, Bobbi Ann, I wish you would have talked more about women." You talked about democracy, which was something different than what we were talking about. That's embraced. That should be embraced.
The other part is the inspiration.
Points. It's
as far as all you women getting together and having this, and I'm sure there was obviously independent party members of different parties that backed you guys, of the male genre, let's say, that were always in support too. And then they saw this and they're like, oh boy, it's like, here we go.
And that's why I would never want this to turn into something where, as a female, that, men put me down, because I don't experience that at all. And in fact, I experience the exact opposite. I have so many men who, basically pump up my tires.
That doesn't sound good.
No, but I'll tell you that, I was asked to kickbox by a male who said, you know what, Bobbi Ann, you would be really good at this. And he has always supported me. There have been always men and women in my life who have supported me. So I wouldn't want this to turn into something where it's a, man versus woman thing. And in that news conference, who was sitting there watching us?
No.
John Fraser from the Liberals, Stephen Blaise from the Liberals, Mike Schreiner from the Green Party, my male comms director. There were males in there supporting us. So I wanted to make sure that we were not turning this into, some sort of, males versus females, because that's not what it's about. It's about democracy. It's about giving, women equal opportunity. And I think Lucille Collard from the, she's kind of our independent House leader. Yeah. I think she said it well. She says, we weren't elected to come here and sit in the corner and be a pretty face, right?
Nice.
And, I say that all the time. There's people who say to me, Bobbi Ann, sometimes you appear a bit scrappy and things like that. You said you were going to do politics differently. Well, doing politics differently doesn't mean I'm going to be bullied, and I'm not going to be the Victorian kid that sits in the corner. I'm going to come out and I'm going to defend, and I'm going to be aggressive when the time is appropriate.
Yeah. One last thought on this too is the inspiration it may cause for young ladies that maybe want to go down the political road to see you guys banding together. You know what I mean? Strong and doing this. I think that's, there's other pieces of this that the government just didn't think about that are repercussions that are going to come down the road and bite them in the ass at some point. But I what, kudos to you. I'm glad that you guys, I'm really happy that, you looked at it from a democracy point of view and a women's point of view, because I think it was two parts to this. And
2 parts. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. But it's good to see, and it's it shows. Maybe there's something into that, shaming the government. Maybe that's
absolutely.
Maybe that's
we should be doing it more. And I'll say that I forfeited once we won the day on that. I knew that there were my colleagues who had some very profound stories that they wanted to tell in their tribute to International Women's Day. And so I said, if we split this up amongst all of us independent women, we're going to get something like 30 seconds each. My one colleague, had a much more profound statement for International Women's Day than I did. And I gave her my time. I said, you take my time, because you know what, Dave? What goes around comes around. There'll be a time where Bobbi Ann has something more profound than a colleague, and I will hope that they will say the exact same thing to me.
Did female members of the Conservative Party join you guys?
No. So somebody said that on social media this weekend. I'm sure they were trying to infer that we didn't invite them. And, you know, I just see independent women, liberals, Green Party, and Bobbi Ann. We're the PC women not invited. And I responded to the comment. I said, of course we would have welcomed them, but why would they show up? They weren't being blocked from speaking.
Oh, did any of them speak to it?
If they did show up to our news conference to support us, I'm sure there would be repercussions for those women.
Did any of them step up though and speak to it?
Well, they would have spoken to the tribute or to International Women's Day, of course.
Okay.
But if we wouldn't have won the day, it would have been a Conservative and an NDP member, and that would have been it. You wouldn't have heard from the Liberal Party, the Green Party.
I got you. Okay, I wanted to follow through on that. It just seems, and that might cause more rifts internally for those other parties, right?
Oh, I'm sure there's women in the PC party who went, "Wow, I can't believe we said no."
Right. Yeah, exactly. That was my point.
But you know, I would say to them, then it's time they speak up. Right. It's time that people stop being afraid of whatever repercussions that, you know, exist.
Explain this to me. How can the government House leader say no? Is that something new? Is that a law that's like, I understand how the protocol works, but like if you had notified him and it was said, hey, let's give this person a chance to speak. I mean, is that something new? Like, has that always been that way?
I believe it is new. I believe that there has been a tinkering, as I say, of the standing orders that allows them the authority to do that.
I didn't know that.
And they're a super majority government.
Yeah,
and
so
I'll remind everybody out there, a super majority government is never, ever.
It's going to do what it wants.
That's right. It's never a good thing for the taxpayer.
All right. I'm glad we had that conversation because thanks. I learned a lot there, a little bit more about the House that I didn't understand. I want to touch base on a piece that was on your website. And again, this is one you're going to have to explain to me because I spent, like, before we got on air, about an hour and a half trying to figure this out. And I was, going down the rabbit hole. I can see how Bobbi never gets any rest because once you start, you're just like, this makes no sense. Well, how does this work? It's concerning the Ontario Land Tribunal and what you said. I think it was March 6th in the House, what you said. Can you talk to that? Do you mind taking a few minutes and explaining it to all us folks in Holland and Norfolk? What the hell was that all about? I don't even know.
So I'm going to be very honest and upfront about this. So yeah, last Wednesday, I spoke about the appointment of the former mayor of Haldimand County to the Ontario Land Tribunal. There has been a lot of talk in the House over the past few weeks about patronage appointments. There were two staffers whom I know on the PC side who were appointed to the judicial system. And patronage,
that's not unusual though, is it, for a government?
That's not unusual.
No.
Patronage appointments, no matter, and I kept kind of laughing at some of my colleagues because I'm like, oh, come on, guys. When you guys were in government, you did the exact same thing. I know you did. The problem that I had with this appointment is very, very simple. I have no problem if they want to appoint someone to a board, but that person should uphold the mandate and believe in the board that they've been appointed to. And I knew that the former mayor of Haldimand County had brought forward a resolution 2 years ago asking that the Ontario Land Tribunal be dissolved. He's now sitting on a board. So in 2 years, did he change his mind? I think that needs to be explained, because the reason he wanted it dissolved, and he put forward a resolution at Haldeman County Council, the reason he wanted it dissolved is he felt that the tribunal was slowing down development. That doesn't sound like an unbiased view. It doesn't seem like somebody who's going to sit there and look at land use policy in an objective manner. I'd have no problem with the appointment if he had not brought forward that resolution 2 years ago.
For the folks that don't understand what the Ontario Land Tribunal is supposed to do or what its job is, can you explain that just a little bit?
So, well, in short, they are to protect public goods. So they look at land use policy decisions across the province, whether there's heritage, cultural, any sort of reason why. What's that?
Agriculture?
Yeah. So absolutely anything. They look at whether or not a development or land policy or a land use issue should or should not be passed and move forward.
Okay. And it's an appointment by the Premier?
So if you listen to the Attorney General say how it's done, it's not really how it's done.
Well, you're supposed to have qualifications. That's what I read.
Well, the Attorney General said that this appointee would be qualified because he was a mayor, and right. Any mayor or anyone sitting as a councillor on any municipal government would be qualified. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. They look at land use issues as mayors, as councillors, fair enough. But again, this is a person who does not believe in the tribunal that they're sitting on. And if he does believe in it now, I would love to hear an explanation in the local media as to how he changed his mind from 2 years ago.
It's really interesting. And I know if he hasn't changed his mind, isn't there a big conflict of interest?
It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, like I'm just kind of like, well, wait,
Mm-hmm.
That to me doesn't make a lot of sense.
And yet there's 99% of the people on social media over the past few days have said this is the type of stuff that needs to be called out. And absolutely it does. Something doesn't sit right with me on this one. And yet there's still a handful of people, who say there's nothing wrong with this. And it's our taxpayer dollars paying him his stipend to sit on a board that he doesn't believe in. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. Like I say, patronage appointments happen all of the time, but then, appoint him to a board where he is objective. I don't feel that he is an objective member of this tribunal at this point in time. And it gets worse because Hamilton Spectator ran a story that said that the tribunal votes in favor of the developer 97% of the time in 2022. Wow. Tells me that the tribunal has been lined with people who support developers.
So let's say there was something going on in Norfolk, and because I was on the tribunal, but it was happening in my backyard, would I have to abstain from that because I have a conflict?
That I don't know.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it gets dicey, right? Like
right,
it gets dicey really quick.
But you also have access, being a member, you also have access to the other members who you can say, hey.
It's true too.
And if 97% of the time, it seems like great odds. And we have a situation in Haldeman County, January 16th, a developer who wants to develop some seasonal cottages at Lowbanks on agricultural land, I might add, was supposed to appear before Haldeman County Council with his proposal on January 16th. And just a few days before, he canceled, and he'll take his chances at the land tribunal.
So you can override the counties?
Take them out of the decision making.
Okay, I have a problem with that too.
Right. Once again, democracy.
No, but I mean, if it's my community, I would like to have a little bit of a say. A tribunal that maybe has nothing to do with my area, it doesn't know it.
No, I don't know what the procedure is, Dave. If it comes back in some fashion, I'm not sure.
Because they can mediate.
I don't know. I don't know if there's an appeal to that. If you can appeal what the tribunal says, that I don't know. But it just didn't smell right to me.
I gotta ask, how did that go over in the House?
It was like fireworks going off. So
the other parties were they
So
caught on.
the way it played out, so basically you get to an original question, and then you get what's called a supplementary question. And I had directed my question to the premier because, going back to how do appointments work? Well, really, the attorney general explains it, and he says, it's a hands-off process. I know it's not a hands-off process. I know that for certain. So no, somebody says, hey, we need to make sure Dave gets onto the tribunal, and they make it happen, right? It's not a hands-off process. Give me a break. Anyway, in my original question to the premier, and it was bounced to the attorney general because he oversees the public appointments secretariat. So it was bounced to the attorney general, and he, said, all mayors, councillors would make wonderful. They'd be qualified to sit on the Ontario Land Tribunal because of A, B, and C. So I'll throw it back to the member opposite. I'll throw it back to her, and she should tell me why he wouldn't be qualified. Thank you very much. Here's the reason why he wouldn't be qualified, because 2 years ago, he asked for the very board that he's sitting on to be dissolved. Well, the whole place went crazy.
Will they discuss if that's the right appointee now, or will it just stay? Like, will he just stay appointed, or
it'll continue.
With this
It'll
information
continue,
you brought forward, will they kind of revisit it?
No. Supermajority government. I can't believe that they would do it. I can't believe that they would do this in a time where they have been attacked over and over and over on their development issues. They have an RCMP investigation ongoing. Why would you blatantly, you actually thought that I wasn't paying attention? And that other people in this riding aren't paying attention? If I was the attorney general, I'll tell you what I would have done after question period. And maybe this is why, they look at me with a crooked eye. But if I was the attorney general, I would have walked down the hall to the premier's office and said, which one of you didn't do your homework on your handpicked guy here?
Yeah.
Because the attorney general now has to, the attorney general didn't look too good when I brought forward that information on the resolution.
Right.
Now he's embarrassed, and it's not his deal to be embarrassed about.
No.
He didn't do it.
Yeah. I'm
all fired up again, Dave.
I know. I got you all fired up now. I'm like, I got to ask her one more question now that I got it going here. Actually, it's not really a question, more of a statement. I don't know if you noticed, but the numbers came out in January for small businesses in Canada and Ontario. The bankruptcy rate was skyrocketing. A lot of those folks, a lot of businesses that got the government grant are now federal grant that they're going broke.
Yeah.
One thing that I don't think we realize is 63.8% of the workforce in this country works for a small business.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see anything with this conservative government where they're trying to help the small business guy? Because when you see that many closing in 1 month, the repercussions coming out of a pandemic, and the whole idea was, everybody will go back to the same, but they didn't count on inflation, right? Mortgage rates going through the roof and everything else. Now you're seeing all these businesses are dying. And Parliament of Norfolk, Ontario has the most businesses per province. There's 439,000 businesses in Ontario alone. If you lose 100,000 of those, and you don't have these new businesses coming in, I get that they're going to be replaced, but that can be a lot of jobs.
Sure. I mean, government always uses the cliches they have for a long time. Small business, the backbone of our community. Small business, the economic engine of of Ontario. And yet we don't do much to support them. In fact, we continually add more red tape to their plate. I actually spoke to, I'm glad you brought this up, because I actually spoke to a business in Port Dover. Drop Carter off at the arena, and I would go downtown Dover on a Sunday and talk to my friends in business down there. And one told me flat out that she was still recuperating. She says, yes, the government monies throughout COVID were good, but she says the problem is with inflation and all these other things on the heels of the pandemic, they still haven't caught up. they haven't caught up
They're nowhere
to
near.
like that
Yeah.
loss, that gap is still there. And she figured that it would be 6 or 7 years before her business caught up. 6 or 7 years, how many people can afford to take the hit for 6 or 7 years? And that's why we're seeing these businesses close. And you're exactly right. I mean, they employ so many people in this province, and I know that the Ontario government has some small business initiatives, but I just don't think they're enough.
Well, and it's
Maybe we should focus more on supporting those types of things than being hell bent on, building 1.5 million new homes that the majority of people can't afford.
well, and it's as simple as shop local, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can do it, because that's
Yep.
keeping it in your own backyard and helping those folks out, and especially with a big farming community in Haldeman, Norfolk, it's imperative that we support each other that way. I just those numbers as a small business guy and being around doing it forever, you're just like, oh, you feel like it's part of the family disappearing. You know what I mean?
Well, and
Like,
it
how
has
are they going to survive? I don't
and
know.
it has a trickle down effect, right? That
Sure it
small
does.
business may have supported minor hockey. It may have supported
Yep.
minor baseball. It may have been giving money to the food bank. It has a trickle down effect.
That's a really good point. That's
Yep.
yeah. We forget those little things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you may not think are significant, but they really are because that's a community. And I think
Yeah.
that's the part of it that you want to see is that growth in the community. And I think we're going to have to watch for 2024, 2025, because I think you're going to see it keep going because they're on a federal level, I was hoping March they would start to drop the interest rates a little bit just to
Mm-hmm.
give some relief to some of these people, but they're not going to
Ooh.
do it.
Speaking of that, just it dawned on me, maybe I should talk about all of those people who signed my carbon tax
Yeah,
petition.
we
And I
forgot
know
about
that
yeah.
there are still carbon tax petitions out and about circulating. Keep signing them. I don't have to read them into the House once. I can continue to read them in, as many times as I want to. But that carbon tax petition calls on the Ontario government to follow Saskatchewan's
Yeah.
Premier Scott Moe in refusing to collect the carbon tax on home heating. You and I both know home heating is not a luxury. It is a necessity. And, Justin Trudeau gave the Maritimes a 3-year reprieve, and we'd like that extended to us as well.
Yeah.
We're no different. And except we're, not heating with heating oil for the most part in Ontario. But we deserve that break too. And so the conservatives, the PCs in the House every day are trying to, if you watch question period, it is so frustrating because a question will be asked about something completely not related to the carbon tax. And they immediately, it's called changing the channel. In politics, it's called changing the channel. And they will continually talk about Justin Trudeau and his carbon tax. Okay, this is not Ottawa. We are in Queen's Park. Let's talk about provincial issues. Let's talk about what the province can do to say no to Justin Trudeau. Don't just say Justin Trudeau's wrong. Prove he's wrong. Tell him, you know what? We're not going to collect your carbon tax on home heating because it's the right thing to do. There's nothing right about the government rebating you with your own money. There's nothing right about that. So, don't collect it in the first place. Leave it in my pocket or your pocket so you can invest it or spend it the way you feel fit. So I've called on the government to do that. And shortly after I did that, they brought forward this omnibus bill that's the get her done bill, I call it. And within there is a bunch of stuff. And then they crammed in there that Ontario would require a referendum in the future on carbon tax if somebody were to bring in their own provincial carbon tax. Yeah, that's all well and good for the future. But what about protecting people right now? People are choosing between heating and eating right now. So you can talk about a referendum, 7, 8 years down the road when there's a change of government, whatever. How does that protect the taxpayer right now? Doesn't.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, the next month I want to talk to you because I see that Alberta had a surplus provincial government there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get into that when we have time. That's sort of an offshoot and all the other stuff that goes on. But I'm like
I
looking
better
at that.
write that down so that I'm ready
I'll
for
write it down. Don't worry, I'll remember. Don't worry, I won't forget. March break this week.
March break. Yeah.
All right. So you're out and about in the public. Any
Out and
events you're
about.
attending that we need to know about?
Anything that I'm attending this week that I can think of? I can't think of any. Oh, I'm doing Paper Bag Princess reading Thursday
Ooh,
with the bookshop. But I do want to give a shout out
rubber punch.
to the Norfolk County OPP and South Coast Special Needs kids. The sledge hockey game yesterday. Oh my stars! That was the most fun that I have had in a very, very long time. And my good friend Alicia Divestein, Constable Divestein, she was my pusher, and I'll be forever apologizing to her because I am extremely competitive. And all I kept saying is, Alicia, push me there. No. And I kept barking at her the whole time. But the whole time I had a smile on my face. And man, those
Athletes.
kids, they can play sledge hockey. Let me tell you, they are talented.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
They smoked us, Dave.
How'd you take that? Did you take that loss okay?
I did. Just to see how happy everyone is, and just to be part of that, it feels good. It's magical.
Nice. It's nice to see that. Yeah, and it's
that's their
great
Olympics, right?
Yes.
One of the speakers after the game said yesterday, like, this is so special to them. They practice and play and everything else, and this is just such a special game for them. And some of them, that smile just never left. From the minute that puck dropped to the last buzzer, they just smiled the whole time.
Yeah. Did you get sticked? Anybody?
What's that?
Anybody run you? You get sticked or anything?
Oh, no. They're aggressive.
Because they are good and they do know what they're doing. So you got to be careful.
They do know what they were doing, and we did not.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I'm like, sign me up again.
Great cause. Wonderful. Yeah. I'm going to let you get back to work. I've kept you long enough, 30 minutes. I'm well over my limit. So listen.
Always a pleasure.
Stay out of trouble, will you? Try. Please?
Try.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Dave.